For a long time, retail traders have speculated that crypto XRP is the future for financial systems. Only recently have you had the Federal Reserve and some of the largest financial institutions coming out and admitting what we have believed this whole time. This clip will speak volumes to where this market is heading over the next few years. And if you're not prepared, you're not going to be taking advantage fully of what's about to happen. Let's jump into this. I also have some other news that I want to get into about the banking industry now fighting back against stablecoins, trying to undo some of the Genius Act. We really need to talk about this. And I got some other Ripple and XRP news that you're going to need to know. Let's go.
My expectation is that in 5 years from now, that every instrument that is traded frequently will be traded on-chain.
I think it's quite clear that if there are $4.5 trillion in digital wallets today, that number is going up, not down. They'll have access to traditional capital markets instruments like stocks and bonds, and they'll have access to funds that companies like Franklin and BlackRock create. They'll have access to ETFs. They'll have access to model portfolios that will be on chain, hit a button, automatically happens and automatically rebalances. I believe these things are a question of when, not if.
My expectation is that
a question of when, not if. All of these different financial instruments will be on chain. I did want to pull up something here from a previous video that I just recorded that I think is going to be of value to you. Let me just pull this up here and get this situated. Check this out. So when we're talking about how much value is actually out there, this is a great example. Real estate, you got about $654 trillion. Global stocks, 145 trillion. Global bonds, 120 trillion. Treasuries is 28.6 trillion, money market funds 12.3, sovereign wealth funds 14 trillion. Global debt net, ladies and gentlemen, is 338 trillion. And of course, the global derivatives market's over 1 quadrillion. Just look at how much has been tokenized so far. So you're going from not having really anything tokenized, a few $1 billion in total value tokenized so far, to trillions, if not quadrillions of dollars in tokenized value over the next 5 to 10 years. What do you think is going to happen to the assets that this value gets tokenized and put on? That's what I've been trying to explain to you here, is if you own some of these crypto assets, that all of this trillions of dollars in value is going to be lived and transacted upon. That is the future network of the financial system. And by owning a crypto asset that represents that value, well, now you own a piece of the financial future. That's how big this is. And this is why people are willing to risk it all on the crypto market going forward. Now, it all comes with extreme risk and people lose everything every single day in the crypto market, especially when you get into leverage and more meme type of tokens. And this is what I really wanted to just focus on, my favorite altcoin XRP here. If you need help in the crypto industry, guys, go talk to a financial advisor. Let's jump into the bank information here. Tony Edwards says they are starting to say the quiet part out loud. How dare you earn higher interest yield on crypto exchanges versus the BS interest that banks pay you? This is a growing problem. Let's play it.
So I think we're making great headway actually in demonstrating why this is an important issue. And this is not about relitigating something that's settled. This is about ensuring banks continue to be in a position to support their communities and power the economy. And, detriment to that would be allowing the likes of Coinbase or Kraken to pay interest on payment stablecoins. I mean, that just flies in the face. One, the notion around a payment stablecoin, that it should be a means of payment and not a store of value. But two, this prohibition that Congress clearly set that we already talked about on these things. And so there's, I don't know. How do you feel, Jess? I mean, there's lots of good momentum here.
No, I totally agree. I feel like this is not an easy fight. It's a very well-resourced, group on the other side. Let's put it that way. But we have broken through. Again, we're not speaking just about, this isn't about what's good for banks. This is about what's good for communities. Banks take deposits and convert them into loans. That's what we do. And fewer deposits means fewer loans. And most members of Congress understand that that's not a good thing. They certainly don't want to have to pick between friends, let's call it, but at the same time, they don't want to do damage to the community.
Well, hold on a second here. They're still going to be loans, but they're just going to be loans that are done via DeFi and blockchain rails, right? People are still going to need access to money. People are still going to buy homes. This is all just going to happen outside of the banking system. Now, I do understand the worry here on both sides. Banks are worried that customers are going to evaporate and move a lot of their assets on chain. If the assets are going on chain anyways, it does feel like that is the way of the future. But banks have had the opportunity for a very long time to give people what they deserve interest rate wise on their savings and checking accounts. Banks purposely give higher rates to higher net worth customers, leaving the rest of retail to kind of get whatever they give you. And I get why people are frustrated and tired of that. If your bank is offering you 0.5% and a crypto stablecoin is offering you 8%, that's a 7.5% difference. On $100,000, that's $7,500 per. On $1 million, that's 75 grand per year. Some people can live off of 75 grand per year. And this is where banks are going to find a challenge. Now, banks were at a seat at the table when the Genius Act was being written. Now they are trying to backpedal after this legislation has been put forward. There's a lot of money on both sides. Who will come out the victor here and what will it mean for blockchain and DeFi? I think that's still up in the air, but I did put together a bunch of research on this. I'm going to go ahead and include this down in the description if you're interested in gaining some more knowledge in this area. Now, there's a further discussion happening after the Federal Reserve governor spoke yesterday. This is an Eleanor Terrett interview kind of discussing very same thing that we just talked about. Let me go ahead and play this.
You should be able to pay some kind of reward or yield on the actual T-bills and money market funds that you're holding. You should be able to pass some of that on to customers.
It's not an investment vehicle. It's not a time deposit where you're holding it to earn interest, right? You're not holding currency for its yield. If Congress wanted to let you pay interest, they should have just said, let you pay interest. So trying to backdoor it is a little funny. It's not supposed to bear interest. At that point, it's not up to me to decide whether that's up to Congress. That's why I don't want to think about paying interest on these payment accounts. It's not supposed to be an account for somebody to hold stablecoins and earn interest. You're not holding it to earn interest. So it's a claim on the banks. You can disintermediate a bank, but you can't disintermediate the banking system. You don't have any claim to demand treasuries. You don't get to go to the bank and say, I want some treasuries. They'll say, no, you get $1. Here's what you get.
Eleanor Terrett, man, she has worked so hard over the last few years. I've watched her grow. Now she's interviewing, the Federal Reserve board person. Like, man, I'm so happy for her. You go, girl. Keep sharing the information, getting it out there for the community. Wow, incredible job. Now, Digital Perspective, Brad Kimes did chime in here. He said, U.S. repo market, we are switching gears. I just wanted to, if you're listening in the car and you're not watching the screen, we are switching gears to talk about the repo market a bit here. Brad Kimes says, the U.S. repo market is $12 trillion. Ripple buys Hidden Road and G Treasury to help settle DTCC's over $2 quadrillion and the $12 trillion U.S. repo market too. I'm sure it's nothing. And he's highlighting this post and it says, nobody really knows how big the U.S. repo market is, or rather, nobody did. We combined through the appendices and decade of annual reports, and this is kind of what you're looking at here. I do know that the repo market, you often see trillions of dollars per day settled there, and you start to wonder what efficiencies Ripple and XRP could give that entire market to really start to settle that value instantaneously and a lot more cheaply. And so if Ripple and XRP were used to settle the entire $12 trillion US repo market, XRP's price would most likely dramatically rise due to the urgent need for deep, reliable liquidity. Hypothetically, current XRP market cap multipliers suggest even modest inflows tied to real transaction settlement volumes could force large price increases depending on available liquidity, circulating supply, and the scale of operational demand. U.S. repo market reached $12 trillion in gross value by 2024, according to a detailed Federal Reserve study. This figure is massive compared to global settlement flows in other financial infrastructures, meaning that any bridge asset tasked with facilitating these settlements would need to absorb and clear enormous amounts of capital within seconds. And I just did a video about this, and there's a lot of people that say you can reuse XRP 100,000 times per day. Realistically, that is true. You can reuse XRP a lot, but XRP is going to be needed across the world in all of these different systems and corridors. And if you do have it separated in these different financial institutions, have this XRP, you're not going to be able to reuse it as many times as you think. And this is really where XRP's price can get supercharged over the next few years. It does say recent models show that under thin liquidity conditions, capital inflows exert a multiplier effect on XRP's market cap for price. For example, in this simulated scenario, a $10 billion buy caused XRP to surge from $2.97 to $90. So you can see that a $10 billion, if the financial institutions woke up tomorrow and they're like, wow, XRP is really going to start settling this repo market, we need to get as much as we can, as quickly as we can. You can see that the sudden huge urge and demand for XRP could send us to 3 digits really quickly. Now, there was a model with a 516 multiplier saying that I could add, 516 multiplier, I think, is not what we're going to be dealing with. I think it's going to be closer to 50 or 100x in the short term. But let's just keep going here. I did have some other things I wanted to get to. Now, I did a live stream yesterday and we had a lot of really incredible people show up. We answer questions, we have a little fun, we look at crypto news. This was one of the clips that I thought was extremely powerful. Let me go ahead and play it for you and I'll give you the points that I think really stand out.
This is an acknowledgement that distributed ledgers and crypto assets are no longer on the fringes, but are increasingly woven into the fabric of the payment and financial system. Now, before we hear from these innovators, I would like to touch on roles that the Federal Reserve plays to support the private sector. These include serving as a convener to solve coordination problems and operating core payment and settlement infrastructure. We are also looking ahead, conducting hands-on research on tokenization, using smart contracts, and the intersection of AI and payments for use in our own payment systems. We do this to understand the innovation happening within the payment system, as well as to evaluate whether these technologies could provide opportunities to upgrade our own payment infrastructures and to enable us to have deeper conversations with the industry on these new technologies.
Remember, right now, the US has spent the last several years building out the FedNow system. FedNow is not blockchain. It is a centralized system at the Federal Reserve where banks are connected and the Fed handles instant settlements, usually at about 20, I think it's, in a few seconds, I think it's 20 cents per settlement, but that isn't blockchain infrastructure. So we would be talking about creating a whole new infrastructure. And the only way the US government could create a whole new financial infrastructure using blockchain is if they went to the private sector. And you start to think, you see a lot of these meetings with Scott Bessent and the UK and these types of things. You have Ripple, Circle, Coinbase there with a lot of other financial institutions. You know that whatever happens here, Ripple is going to have a seat at the table. They've had a seat at the table, and you start to wonder, what role here is XRP going to play on a global scale? The real question that you have to ask yourself is, do you want to deny that this is going to happen, that this transition to this blockchain infrastructure is happening? Because I do see a lot of people that still don't believe in this digital revolution. Like, do you want to risk that chance? If I were you and you're still on the fence here, start learning more, start spending more time on this, because if you miss this shot, if you miss this opportunity, you will never get an opportunity like this in your lifetime. There's only so many times an entire world can change to a new financial system. This is that opportunity. So good luck out there. I hope you're following the channel. I will give you as much news as quickly, as efficiently, and as well put together as I can. Thank you so much for being a member of this channel here. You can like the video, you can subscribe to the channel, you can share this with a friend, whatever you want to do. Just I appreciate you being here. Crypto Sensei, aloha!